Before coming here, I was a little bit concerned of whether the level of quality of thought, quality of investigation, quality of execution would be up to scratch. I have not been involved with Indian academics, so this is my first real encounter with the studio culture and the kind of work that architects are doing here. Having said that, I think I find that I was pleasantly surprised by the quality of the work. The ideation is a very important part of the gestation of projects, and I felt that the students were not only challenging the sort of status quo, but they were being quite brave and adventurous with the interventions that they came up with. I think the second step to that is the ability to express it, both verbally as well as graphically. We are a graphic presentation sort of profession, and the ability to communicate these ideas, which is as important as the idea itself, because if not for the presentation, we have no idea what the intent is. So I think on that level, I congratulate the students for their ambition, for the courage to address the project at this level of engagement. So the idea that the students have taken time out and spent that to pursue a competition of this nature, I think has been admirable. And I think my rear view sort of take has been that it's been very interesting and fun for me to get involved with. Well, I think the tough part is as an academic critic, we have to understand our role in a situation like this. There is sometimes a tendency for critics to come in and bulldoze the scheme and try to show how smart and clever they are and you know, make the students feel small. And I think that's a danger that we run, is that, you know, we're judging young architects, fairly unformed architects who have had maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 years of experience, but are really at the beginning of their architectural journey. So I tend to come at these with the idea of finding the good, highlighting that, understanding the bottom line sort of premise of what the students have been trying to do. And at best, maybe then come in with a sort of gentle critique about how something could be done better, how a project could be pursued better, how maybe the presentation could be better, so that the overall experience is a learning one. One of the wow moments wasn't so much about a particular project, but the fact that 3 of the 8 schemes were presented online. And to me, that's a new thing. The idea that one can be across the world, and somebody, it was in fact probably at 3 in the morning somewhere in Argentina, dialing in and presenting their scheme here in Pune. And I think that to me is a wonderful demonstration of the flattening of the planet. The idea that whether it's here, there or elsewhere, people are contributing to the architectural debate across the globe, and that the problem setting, while being extremely specific to a place, Madurai, that street, those 10 columns, can be dealt with constructively by somebody elsewhere, and that their contribution to the architectural debate is valid, because at the end of the day, one of those schemes, the Argentinian scheme, came up on the podium and was, you know, given one of the top 3 prizes out of 200 plus schemes. So it goes to prove, yes, even that distance and that removal of the subject matter is no barrier to being involved. I'd like to focus not so much on the ideation and the sort of the development of that. I think they have a lifetime ahead to hone that skill, to improve their sense of perception and to develop more refined architecture. I think one of the takeaways I would say applies to all of them is to be very mindful of how you communicate. Ultimately, we don't build a building in front of a client real life. Like if you built the whole building and said, do you like it, then that would be an easy conversation because it's real. So everything we do is about presenting a future that isn't yet there. And how you do that is very important, and is the difference between architects who are successful in that sense versus very creative designers. You can be an extremely creative designer. If you cannot communicate your ideas, they stay in the grave, they never make it out. And to realize that the skill of presentation is equally important, because that's what allows you to convince eventually the client, but also your co-consultants, your engineers, even your builders and your contractors eventually have to buy into the idea that they want to build your building. and you have to be able to convince them of the merits of the architecture. So I think on a whole, I think that was an area where every student can learn from it, because I think the commentary from the jury was always geared towards, did you communicate what your idea was about well? Did everything you put up there contribute to the selling of the concept? And sometimes there were quite a few drawings that were dragging the concept down because they were not up to the mark. And the human mind and human nature is to look at the composite of information and remember the weakest link. Unfortunately, we are like that. And so make sure when you look at your work, whether a competition, a studio, or actually a project that you are presenting to a client, look at your presentation and see whether everything is contributing to the strength of the project and seeing how you tell the story, right? Great architects are fantastic storytellers, and they know how to deliver that idea so that the client feels it's not a solution, it is the solution because of the way it's presented. Well, I think like almost all endeavors that are recurring, and this is the 9th year, there'll be 10, there might be 20, 30, 40, is to continue to push the bar, not just in terms of 60 countries, 90 countries across the globe, but is what the content of the competition is, and to see that, okay, this year was a fairly contained site, a fairly immediate sort of intimate space with 10 columns and old, new, and a very distinctive setting, which is, Madurai and that particular part of it. I would say that the challenge for next year is to say, okay, what's the next step? What do you set as a challenge for the next generation of the drawing board students, architects, to be challenged? And trust that the student bodies who are responding, they're up to it. Surprisingly, and like the old saying goes, there are no such thing as great men, only circumstances that demand greatness. If the project demands a kind of involvement and innovation and challenge, then I think you'll see coming up out of that sort of student body the work that responds to that challenge. So I think is always a challenge, is to say, okay, assume they're up to it, see how much you can challenge them and watch what happens. It's joyful. I used to teach all the time until I left Singapore, so it's been a year plus that I haven't been on a jury, and today I realize how much I missed it, because it's really enlightening, it's educational, it's rewarding in a way that reminds us, after many years of professional practice, that maybe we do have a few things to share, and seeing the enthusiasm of youth and the energy of youth and saying, okay, I don't know how many all-nighters were there and how many coffees or Cokes or whatever it is that keeps you awake at night, you're like, yeah, that's good. That's the juice of enthusiasm. So again, love to be involved.